Great. Hi, welcome to the High Tech High Graduate School of Education online info session. My name is Kelly Wilson. I direct the M.Ed program, and I'll be facilitating this evening. We're going to hear a little bit of an overview of the High Tech High K-12 schools, how they got started, what they're about, and how they grew into the Graduate School of Education, and then talk a little bit about both the M.Ed program and the Hybrid Online Education Leadership Academy, and quickly get to the most important part, which is talking to current students in those programs and hearing about their perspectives and experiences, and then we'll end with Q&A. So I'm going to hand it over to Rob. Rob Reardon is a co-founder of High Tech High Schools, and he's the president of the GSE.
Hi, thank you, Kelly. So it's my pleasure to give a brief overview of High Tech High and the Graduate School of Education. We opened High Tech High in September 2000 with 200 students. Our thought at the time was that we would simply do a high school. And our thought at the time also was that we wanted to do two things. We wanted to end or put an end to social class integration in schools, and we wanted to put an end to teacher isolation. So we opened a school that was lottery admission, and the lottery is run by postal code so that we get a pretty good representation of the population, school-age population in San Diego. And we knew that, and we do not track students in any way. We have no AP courses. We don't have honors courses. We have honors sections in courses instead, so that the whole range of students can be found in any one of our classrooms. And we knew from the beginning that we would be hiring, and we knew that project-based learning would be a way to address the issues that arise in a very heterogeneous classroom, because projects allow many entry points and many ways to shine for students. We also knew that we would be hiring new teachers who, although they bought into project-based learning as an approach, may never have experienced it themselves in their own learning careers. So we knew we had to have a robust adult learning environment in the school as well. So from the very beginning, we built a schedule where the teachers come to school an hour before the students every day. So those were the two fundamental pieces of High Tech High from the very beginning, and then it was natural for us, first of all, to want to train and credential our own teachers, which we did through an authorization from the California State Teacher Credentialing Commission, and then to open a graduate school, because our K-12 schools pose questions. How do you design and create a setting that offers access and challenge to a wide range of students all together in the same classroom? And how do you create an adult culture where teachers are working with each other to tune projects, to talk about students, to address the problems that arise in such a setting? So fundamentally, we're about equity, both in our K-12 schools and in our Graduate School of Education. What it is, how to achieve it in school settings, and so on. And we invite people from around the world, and you all who are listening tonight too, to join us in posing and addressing these questions. So that's about it for an overview.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rob. And there's three things, and I think Rob touched on these, that really are through lines throughout our graduate programs. And one is that graduate students are engaged in thoughtful inquiry and reflection. So just like our K-12 schools, our goal is that learning is personalized and authentic, and that students are pursuing their own passions and inquiry, and connecting the theory in the graduate school to their settings by putting things in practice at their schools, and having a supportive network of colleagues in their cohort and GSE instructors and directors and teachers in our schools that support them and critique and feedback on the leadership work they're engaged in, and also reflecting on how to get better at the work they're engaged in. The second is designing equitable and engaging learning environments. This is really about the intersection of equity and pedagogy. Like Rob said, Our schools are really known for project-based learning. What's less known and equally important is that they were really an experiment in social class integration, and that we see pedagogy as a vehicle to achieving more equitable outcomes in our schools. So about 45% of the kids in our 12 K through 12 schools, we have elementary, middle, and high across San Diego, and 3 campuses, are on free and reduced lunch. About 1 in 3 are the first in their family to go to college. But 99% of our graduates do go to college, about 75% starting off at 4 years, and about 85% after 6 years have completed college, which is over double the national average. So when we think about issues of design and pedagogy and learning environments in the classroom, and how to have students taking a less is more approach to curriculum, exploring fewer topics in depth, and applying what they're learning to things they're passionate about, that are authentic, that have meaning outside the world of school and to their community and to themselves, that we're also looking at equity and access to that curriculum, and how all kids are able to show their strengths and shine in that environment. The third is leadership for school change. And so whether you're interested in these programs because you're designing a new school, or you're interested in transforming your classroom or the school that you're in, we're thinking deeply about how you engage colleagues in passionate dialogue about change, how you bring in the voices of teachers and students in that work, and those in school administration or school leadership positions are learning how to really share leadership and to become thoughtful facilitators of change and collaborators, connecting students and teachers and giving them voice in that process, is all topics that we explore through our programs. Laura, if you could click to the next slide. We have one MED program with 2 concentrations. So the MED, you can concentrate in teacher leadership or school leadership, but really about 2/3 of the courses are shared together. Topics from equity, diversity, and design principles, design and leadership for deeper learning, leadership for school change. A lot of those are shared coursework with slightly different courses for the concentration. In teacher leadership, more of a focus on pedagogy and instructional leadership. And in school leadership, we get into issues of school design, school law, school finance, so really the other pieces of leading an organization and taking a systems-wide approach to leadership and school change efforts. Regardless of the concentration, you can do the program 2 years part-time if you're a working professional in our schools or other schools in San Diego, or we have the 1-year full-time residency. Through that model, in either concentration, you're apprenticed to either a high-tech high teacher or high-tech high school leader, learning to lead through apprenticeship, starting the year with more shadowing observation, and then doing a lot more leading as time goes on. For the school leadership concentration, we do have a fellowship next year for 12 fellows to come and do that program tuition-free with a $2,000 per month living stipend. And in that program, you are apprenticed to one of the 12 high-tech high directors, sharing an office with them. So you do spend time looking at the budget together. You spend time dealing with student issues together, planning professional development, coaching teachers. So in either concentration, it's a very authentic, hands-on, learn-by-doing approach. Laura, do you want to talk about the hybrid online Leadership Academy?
Sure, and I'll probably eventually, obviously, Shannon here is one of our teachers from Chicago who's working with us. And so we started the Education Leadership Academy about 3 years ago with the intent that we had teachers and schools that were really interested in transforming their school and using the similar elements that Rob and Kelly described about equity, change leadership, deeper learning, and really looking at how these concentrations connect. We work with school teams who come to High Tech High 3 times a year, and then they engage online through Google Forums and through Google Hangouts with High Tech High teachers. So each of the teams typically consist of a school leader along with teachers who are in their classrooms practicing project-based learning and other wonderings that are happening in their classroom. And then they actually meet online with a High Tech High mentor, typically via email, via Hangout, via conversations and phone calls, lots of different ways in which they describe how to get at their work. And throughout the year, they're engaging, they're meeting with us back here at High Tech High, and throughout the year, they're really engaging in a collaborative leadership project that asks them to do something in their practice, but then also create a collaborative project about leadership in their own school. I'll have Shannon talk about their project that they're doing this year at her own school, but we've got people that are doing building websites for their whole staff. They're building professional development series. Our hope is really that our academy program is building the capacity in other schools to do this type of work with each other and with their students even more.
Great. So Laura, why don't we move to this slide with some questions? I think I'd love to go straight into talking to some of our current students and participants, and we can talk about fellowship opportunities later before Q&A. So let's start off. We have Enrique, Judy, Shannon, and Patricia here. So we have 3 from the M.Ed program, 2 that are school leadership residents, 1 the teacher leadership concentration, and then Shannon is in the Education Leadership Academy. We'd love to know first, maybe just the first 2, what brought you to the GSE and what stands out to you about your experience? Judy, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, so I'm Judy. I'm in the school leadership program here at High Tech High Graduate School of Education. And what brought me here is I think I really was at a point in my career where I just wanted to learn more. I really wanted to experience something different. I had been in the same school for 8 years and just wanted to kind of see what else was out there, and heard so many great things about High Tech High. One thing that really stands out for me is really the power of relationships. I think coming from a bigger school, it wasn't something that was ever really that important to me, or at least I didn't think it was. But working in a smaller school setting and being in a smaller cohort of graduate students, I feel like relationships are something I think about and how we can leverage that to maximize just everyone's learning experience.
Beautiful. And Enrique, do you want to pop in next?
Sure. So hi, I'm Enrique, and I'm in the teacher leadership program or concentration. And what brought me to the program was, one, the opportunity to work with some of the teachers or instructors that we have, like Rob Riordan and among others. And I think for me, really, it was also a matter of being encouraged by my director to join the program and just the opportunities that I would get to learn and grow as an educator and a leader in our campus. And so far, it's been amazing what I have gained. So everything that brought me here, mainly just I don't know, wanting to learn more about what I'm doing and why and how to become a louder voice at my campus, because I feel like there were so many opportunities that I would shy away from because I didn't feel confident to take a bigger role amongst our staff. And so far it's been a really cool experience.
Wonderful. And why don't we hear from Shannon, and then Patricia and I are in the same room together. So Shannon is part of ELA. So just what brought you here and what stands out so far about your experience?
Okay. So my school is in Newell is a partnership. Director. So we're really looking at how have we improved our school culture through efforts like teacher collaboration, and then how does that reflect into what we're doing in our classrooms and encouraging students to collaborate with one another as well. So our main focus this year, and the big project we're working on, is looking at school culture improvements, and we'll be creating a video to kind of represent all the changes we've gone through this year.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And I have Patricia here with me. She can introduce herself and talk about what brought her here, what stands out.
Thank you. So I just want to say first that you want to congratulate you if you are part of this conference call, because that means that you're progressive. That means that you are questioning the status quo. That means that you really want to do more impactful work in the communities. And with the experience that I've had in urban education and opening schools in the Chicago area, it was a point that there has to be something different. We cannot be only following the status quo in terms of the standardization. We have to be able to engage the students, to engage the staff in different ways and more reflective ways. So I've known about High Tech High and since 2002, and I thought to myself, this is the time for me to reflect, to push my thinking, to go where the conversation is taking place about preparing our youth to this century, the 21st century skills, critical thinking, collaboration, reflective, not being afraid to experiment. So that was my goal, and I know that you're progressive and that you're enthusiastic about what you're going to be doing, so I encourage you to continue, you know, your process. In terms of what has been my experience here, it's like speechless. There's so many things that are happening here personally with my own, you know, reflection struggles. We have a critical friend that is pushing our thinking. We have the opportunity to, you know, create our own action research project, and in my case, my passion is, you know, how do we involve families, as we know the importance of their effect on our students. As Latinos, we have to work on that, and you will not find that opportunity elsewhere where you are embedded in the school, not only middle school, high school, elementary school. You design where you want to spend that 20% of your time, and you will be the reflection that we have among, like Judy was saying, the collaboration and the relationships among our professors as well as our colleagues. So we are so excited to hear, for example, that there's one of our colleagues is opening a school, and she has the support of this whole organization, and all of us are dreaming and thinking, how are you going to build that school, etc. So the opportunities are endless, and I could not be in a better place to reflect and think about what is my next step of contribution in urban education.
Beautiful. Thank you, Patricia, and everyone else. This is a good segue, actually, because you began speaking about your master's project and what you're focusing in on. I would love to hear from everyone else, maybe work that you're engaged in, either through your master's project, your coursework, your field work, that you feel particularly passionate about or proud of.
So I'll go first this time. And I think just the answers that were given by Patricia, Judy, and Shannon, who I'm meeting for the first time here, I think part of what I'm engaged in is exactly a result of collaborating with our colleagues here in the cohorts. And part of what I'm doing right now is something that I'm realizing I started when I became a teacher at High Tech High, but I feel like I didn't have context for what I was doing, and through the courses that I've been a part of since August, I feel like I've gained a greater sense of my purpose as an educator and giving, I don't know, greater intention to what I'm doing. So one of the things that I've been looking at is how to increase self-confidence or self-concept as a creative student in my students. And I think I always had that as a goal, but I never knew how to actually measure that or make that happen. And I think especially in the last two courses that we had, one on designing projects and then the second one with assessment, it just really gave me a lot of resources, new readings that I had never considered looking at. And it's really given what I'm trying to implement in my classroom a real purpose and intention. So everything that I do, from the activities that we do in my class to the readings, I'm doing more readings in my art class, which I didn't really do before. I'm just sharing all the knowledge that I'm gaining with my students, and it's been really powerful to, I don't know, be excited with them and tell them, like, this is what I read in my grad school and I wrote in my notes was to share it with you guys. And I don't know if they get as excited as I do, but I know for me it's given me a direction, really, of where to go and how to meet these goals that I had set out. And I'm realizing now I maybe wasn't really hitting those goals. It was more just something I was writing about, but I feel that now I have the knowledge to back those goals and really get after it. So that's kind of what I'm in right now, and I don't know that I'm going to, accomplish everything that I'm setting out to do this year, but knowing that I have next year to work on it, as well as all the support, like Patricia mentioned, I think it's great to be able to just bounce ideas off one another and be pushed in our thinking in person and in the forums that we participate in. So I know the possibilities are endless, and just talking about it gets me really pumped up and wanting to do more.
Well, I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to follow that one, but I think even though we're in different programs, I think very similarly, I think there were a lot of things I wanted to do and thought about, but didn't really have the official knowledge or readings or pedagogy to back it up. It just seemed like a good idea to try this strategy. And so now in my master's project, I'm working on using the improvement research framework to really help teachers figure out how to have productive collaboration in their classrooms. And I think sort of a side impact of this is we're really having the opportunity to think about academic mindsets in our students. And I think it's interesting because I wasn't super thrilled about doing a research project, but now that I'm in it, I feel like it's given me the opportunity to really develop a lot of relationships and try out the things that we're learning in class, and makes it all real for me. So ultimately, pretty cool.
Great, thank you. Shannon, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed through Ed Leadership, and something I'm really proud of seeing in our school as a result of our collaboration with High Tech High, is all the risks that teachers are willing to take within their own classroom. So I think we're lucky to have a director who's really supportive of that, but something within my own classroom we're working on now is like a major project. The kids are building a website, and they're partnering with high school students from different countries and looking at what is the teenage experience abroad. And I just think that this project is a big risk for me as a teacher to take, and I know it's a big risk for the students, but I think I've been inspired this year to try things that I wouldn't have done previously, and just see where our curiosity takes us, and hope that we can develop some deeper learning through these risks we're taking.
Judy, if you could start over, that'd be great, because your mic is muted there. So if you guys could start over, that would be great.
Oh, I was trying to be better at muting my mic, and then I forgot to unmute it. I'm sorry. I said that Patricia had a few more thoughts she wanted to share about what she is working on, and then we have some questions that are now coming in from audience members, so feel free to start sharing those, and we'll move to your questions next.
So just my last thoughts is, this is not going to be easy work. It's a lot of work, because we are embedded in the residency from age 2-3, and we have classes and we have our research. So it's really giving ourselves the time how to balance, but also you will not have the opportunity of just reflecting and giving yourself time. I love what Shannon said about curiosity. We are becoming, out of our boxes. I feel like a little kid where I am excited and give myself permission to fail. Give permission my surroundings, and if I'm a leader, I want to have that same environment for our teachers and our parents. So the academic mindset, the growth mindset of moving a community of learners, which we are all, that's something that you will never forget, because of the impact that it's doing to you, to your family, to the community that you serve. So give yourself that permission to spend a year or 2 years investing in you, and how can you do things different, because as Larry and Rob had said, if you want to change, if you want to transform, you cannot be doing the same thing. You have to do things in a different way to impact that transformation. So just pack your bags, come to this wonderful place, and there's a lot of work to do, but with the support from, you know, the whole team.
Judy, there's a question that was coming in, and maybe I know some other folks wanted to respond a little bit as well. Patricia did a great job responding, but I know Judy had some thoughts about how this program kind of has empowered you. One of our wonderful Ms. Morrison, who's visited us, was wondering really about this process and how it really has empowered you. So maybe I know, Judy, you had some thoughts on that. So do you want to jump in? That would be great.
Sure. So I think I would be happy to talk with anyone after this session if anyone is interested. I feel like without knowing your individual stories, it's kind of hard to give you advice, if you will. But I think one thing that has been really great about this process is just being here and being in a position where ultimately at the end of the day you are not responsible for everything, but you get to see so much of what goes on behind the scenes in a really supported and scaffolded way. You know, I'm not necessarily the most outgoing person or the loudest person in the room, but I think what this experience has shown me is that I can do some of this leadership stuff, and so I think it's just something that's growing on me and making me feel like this is a possibility, whereas back in August when I got here, I would say, absolutely not. I'll be in the classroom for the rest of my life.
So another question that's coming in is kind of what are the biggest aha moments that have come? So maybe Enrique or Shannon, maybe the one question that came in is what has been the biggest learning moment this year for you as a learner? That's a question that came in as well.
I think an aha moment for me has been just throughout the readings that we've been doing, and readings on, you know, school leadership, so reading about how to manage staff or work with other educators, and then readings about working in the classroom and in regards to students. And I think the biggest that I've kind of taken away is how similar teachers can be to the students, and how a lot of the things that we do in our practice with our students can also be implemented to the things that we do as a staff. And one of the first activities we did in our Odyssey was the paseo activity that then led into dialogical interviews, and we actually did that in one of our staff days, and it was really cool to see the different responses. I mean, we had some folks that, you know, just like students, sometimes you don't feel it, and others who really were excited and felt like it was an amazing experience. So for me, it's been just being here at High Tech High as a teacher and being in this program at the same time. It's just been amazing to see how much I can immediately implement into what I'm doing on a daily basis, not just with my students, but also with our staff at school. And I think that's been the greatest thing, because kind of similar to Judy, before this, I didn't see myself with this kind of confidence to lead a PD at a staff day, and I was super nervous to do it. We did it, and I don't know, it's just been incredible to see the transformation in myself through this program and through the knowledge that I'm gaining, and just knowing that I still have a long ways to go as well. So lots of ahas, I guess.
I can share an aha moment. Just at our last week out in San Diego, we, as a team, my fellow teachers and my director and I kind of arrived at this point, similar to what Enrique is saying, that how similar teachers and students can be. We're looking at what we are hoping for our students. Sorry, that's my husband. What we're hoping for our students, and if we want them to be collaborators and to have those 21st century skills, looking at our teacher evaluation and trying to say that if we're valuing collaboration for students and teachers, then the way we evaluate students and teachers should reflect that. And so we were thinking as a team, maybe changing our teacher evaluation so that we're saying we know teachers are successful in their classrooms if they are collaborating, if they're engaged in authentic experiences, if they're moving outside of the classroom. So that was kind of an aha moment. I agree with Enrique about the similarity between expectations for teachers and students.
Okay, great. And I'm going to share, unless Judy, did you want to share anything else?
No, I feel like they've pretty much covered it all.
Okay. Okay, great. I'm going to, it sounds like we have a lot of technical questions coming in about the program and date, so let me just give a little bit of that information now. We can go into more Q&A. Or we can wait to do those technical questions. Let me just briefly touch on them. If you can bring up the fellowship slide, Laura. So the program starts in the beginning of August, the first week of August, and goes till the end of June. It's an 11-month school year in either the 1-year or the 2-year model. The next priority deadline for applications, you can find all that material on the website, is February 17th, which is a Tuesday. From there, we do interviews, and in some cases, 2 rounds of interviews if you're doing the 1-year residency model. And then by late March, early April, we send out our admissions decisions. If you are an international student who's applying to the program, then at that point when you're admitted, we help you through the J-1 visa process so that you can arrive here by early July. We have fellowships that offset tuition. Tuition's advertised at $25,000, but people pay significantly less than that with the fellowships that we're able to give out. We're each year able to give out just a few full tuition diversity fellowships. We're really trying to bring in particular, more educators of color into the program, but we look at diversity in a very inclusive, kind of diverse way. So if you'd like to be considered for that fellowship, indicate that in your cover letter and kind of describe why you'd like to be considered for it. And then we have the full school leadership fellowships, which are the full living stipend, or sorry, the full tuition and partial living stipend with kind of continued support after graduation. We're also trying to encourage more people to do the 1-year model and the teacher leadership concentration, so we offset that tuition a bit more through fellowships.
I have a couple follow-up questions for some of our awesome viewers that are watching here, international folks. Can you speak a little bit about, we have a couple people that are watching from Canada and Israel, and they're wondering about the timeline for transcripts, and if you can speak about the international transcript process for them, and given the delay of where they're coming from, and if you can speak a little bit about that, and then whether or not the fellowship is good for international students.
Okay, great. Well, we're very excited. This is actually the first year, starting next fall, that we can bring in international students through the J-1 visa program, so we're very excited about that. We have thousands of international visitors each year that want to spend more time working with High Tech High and be embedded here, so we're excited about the prospect of having more international students next fall. I think the best thing, our program manager is Haley Mirgerson, and Laura can follow up with people that have questions about transcripts, those kind of technical pieces with her. But I think the best thing is to get them in as soon as you can, but we can begin to review your application without transcripts if we know there's a delay in that, and then she supports you with the visa process afterwards. It's going to be new for us this year, so we'll do a lot of learning together. Laura, did I miss a piece of that? I feel like there's one other question embedded there.
What about the fellowships for international students?
Right.
And then there is a follow-up question about some folks are asking, the application asks for examples of student work. They're wondering whether that's their current work from their own classroom or potentially work they like to be doing.
Okay, great. So the Walton Family Foundation Fellowship has more of a national focus for the school leadership concentration, but the other fellowships that we offer that reduce the cost of tuition, and then the diversity fellowships, those are open to all applicants. And then the student work, so you can either do a video submission or a student work submission. The video can be of you teaching or of you facilitating conversation with colleagues, doing leadership work. If you submit student work, it should be student work from your classroom. And so it might not yet be the work that you aspire to do with students, but part of what you're reflecting on in the written piece that goes with the student work is kind of what's working well, where you would push the work further, and questions that you have with that work. And I know our students need to go to class in about 5 minutes, so I can continue to answer some of these technical questions, Laura and Rob and I, after they leave. But are there any other questions about their experience in the program? One question as questions come in, one that we typically ask is just, what advice do you have for people that are considering applying to the program?
Well, as a local to the program, I think the only advice I would give is to just be prepared for the amount of work that we have to do. I think I kind of braced myself for it, but I have been just surprised at what I'm doing, and surprised in a good way, because a lot of it has been very challenging, but I think it's also really forced me to think about, really think about what I'm doing, and I feel like in talking to different people in the cohort, I think that's what is so challenging about it, is that because we're embedded here in a school and you get to put into practice, I mean, really the next day at times, what you've learned the night before in class, it makes it really personal, and I think the level of my investment in my work and just what I'm learning is at a much higher degree, so just being prepared for that, I think, it gets emotional for me at times, because I really want to do certain things, and I can't seem to find enough hours in the day to get it all done. I'm also a father of 2 young kids, so that's a thing that I have to balance, but I can honestly say that if I'm able to do it, and you know, I think I still have room to grow, but the fact that I'm here and I'm surviving, I think anyone can do it, especially if, you know, something that Patricia said earlier, if you're even considering being in this program, I think that already speaks a lot about where your heart is in education and what you hope to do, and I think it's an experience that you're not going to get anywhere else, and I mean, if you can do it, you should go for it. I think in the months, or in my experience since August, I've completely changed the way I think, the way I interact with my students, with my colleagues. I'm a lot more thoughtful of what I'm doing, and I guess I don't know if that's really advice as much as it's campaigning for you to join us, but yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but every bit of it is worth what you will gain in return.
Yeah, I think similarly, it's a lot of worthwhile work. It's a lot of applicable work that you can use not only the next day in your school, but in basically everything that you do beyond here. I think in a general level, advice I would just say, the more open-minded and vulnerable you let yourself be, the more you're going to get out of the program. On a logistical level, arrive at least a week before the Odyssey. I think Kelly told me to do that, and I arrived the day before the Odyssey, and that was probably one of the worst decisions I've made. But it's really intense, but it's so worth it. Everything is worth it here.
Great. Shannon, any advice from your perspective?
Yeah, I agree with Judy in pushing yourself to really be open-minded and you know, questioning some of the practices. I think in schools and just as educators, we maybe are used to things being the way that they are. So something that I agree with is just try to keep an open mind and question why have you developed the habits that you've developed, and how can you try to push yourself forward.
Great. And I think, Laura, do you have more questions now coming from the audience for us?
I do have lots of questions, so I'm going to kind of read those out, but I do, but I'll just kind of share them with us so that you can see. I think the first question is really one question that comes from Justin. He asks, like, what would they say made their applications effective in terms of getting accepted into the program? That's probably primarily for Judy and Enrique, but like, what do you think made your application? Why do you think you got picked, I guess is the other way to frame the question, is why did you get selected to come to the GSE? What do you think, what about your statement, your work that really spoke to you, and why do you think that kind of made you a candidate for us?
You can go first.
I actually feel like this is a question for Kelly because I don't really know. I think one of the most humbling things about being here is that you meet people and you find out new things about them every day, and you're like, oh, you started a nonprofit and you're starting your own school next year, and I was just a classroom teacher for 8 years. You know, like, you meet really incredible people here. I think perhaps one of the things that I've really learned in the many years in education is just about being really reflective, and I think that part of it really aligns with this high-tech high model of really always trying to think about what you do and why you do it and what the immediate and long-term consequences are of what you do. So perhaps that's something that I brought in my application.
I can jump in. Unless, Enrique, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to that because I think that's really hard for us to know, like what we wrote about. But I know for me, in thinking and just hearing Judy give her answer, I feel like when I wrote my statement, it was really from my heart and where I was in that moment. So I was really honest about my goals and aspirations. But I think it also helped that the folks that wrote letters of recommendation on my behalf were people that really believed in me and what I could do. So I think a lot of it is, for me, was just the timing, the people that are supporting me in this and encouraging me to be a part of the program, I think allowed me to speak really openly and like I said, from my heart in terms of where I was hoping to go within the program.
Great, and I wouldn't say these are necessarily criteria for the applications, but when I look at the amazing group of educators that are in the cohort this year, they bring unique perspectives and diverse experiences, but they have a lot of shared values as well. I would say they're very passionate, intellectually curious, extremely reflective about their practice and open to kind of re-examining prior held beliefs, and open to taking risks and trying new things in their classroom and their schools. And then I would say at the heart of what we're doing within the cohort, people are very passionate about issues of equity and social justice and how pedagogy and deeper learning can really address issues of equity and also transform the way that we think about schools and schooling. So those are all kind of themes throughout the program, but you can see that being a rich part of what members of the cohort kind of bring and contribute to that dialogue.
Great. Great. So and there's a couple big questions that I think I want to give back to kind of Kelly and Rob, but I think a couple questions, and maybe Shannon can answer this one, because there was a question about the hybrid program, and it's a question about, I'm not in a classroom, I'm not teaching in a classroom, so what type of project could I do? And maybe you can speak a little bit about how your teacher leadership crew is really, the people that are in the academy, how the work that you're doing actually is beyond the classroom. It's actually about cultivating teachers within your school, even though you're in a classroom, but actually what you're doing is beyond the classroom.
Yeah, so I think in addition to the work that all of us individually are doing as teachers, we have a larger project that we're working towards, and really we're looking at how have we tried to encourage our staff to collaborate through the implementation of a daily, what we call zero period. And so we meet together school-wide, department-wide, we do study groups, and so looking at the success of some of these changes that we've made. So that's kind of work that we've done around how are we trying to encourage teachers to collaborate with one another. And then how do we see, are we seeing any payoff within our classrooms? And what are the effects on our school culture? Another piece that we'll be hopefully putting together is trying to put together a narrative of our school and what's the story of our school and what's really driving the work that we're doing. And that's another school-wide piece. So that's mainly around culture. And hopefully we'll bring together student and staff perspectives just to kind of track our progress and see if these big risks are paying off. So these are some things that we're working on. outside of our classrooms. It all kind of comes together, of course, but hopefully that helps.
That it does help, and I'll respond directly with Rachel as well, who asked the question about really what is the student's piece she might want to bring in. It's really a statement of intent, and so what are they trying to do as leaders in their school? And that for us, for the Academy program, we truly, because we're trying to work with a diverse group of learners for the program, their piece of work or what they're submitting for their school might look differently, and maybe it's more of a vision for what they're trying to do in their school as opposed to a piece of student work from a classroom. So that's the question, but why don't we, I want to go on to a bigger question here, and this is really for Rob, and for maybe Rob wants to answer this one. Do you feel the educators who attend our GSE represent a diverse range of improving educational outcomes, or is everyone trying to improving their teaching/school leadership abilities? What do you think, how our students are representing the diverse educational outcomes, or are we really just about teaching and learning?
Well, I think teaching and learning is central to, is my mic on? Yeah. I think teaching and learning is central to what we're about at High Tech High and what we're about in the GSE and what our students are kind of interested in. But there's a whole array of kind of things that kind of circulate around teaching and learning. For example, what does a good learning environment look like? I mean, we have students who've been interested in classroom setups or school setups and so on. And what does a culture look like? And what does adult learning in a school look like? What are the elements of a good project? Those are all kind of about teaching and learning, but they're also about creating contexts for learning. So I think that's an important piece of it all. And I think from what Patricia and Shannon and Judy and Enrique have said, I think it's fairly obvious that a lot of this is about culture. I mean, most of our students come from school environments. We've had a couple who've come from public libraries and other places, but almost all of our students are from school environments. So naturally, the thinking is about teaching and learning, but it is also about the environment that surrounds it.
Thanks, Rob. And so another question that I want, we just have a couple more minutes, and we still have about 4 or 5 more questions, so I'm going to try to move us through here.
But one other thing, though, that, if I may, there's a piece that I left out, which is that there's also a strand of interest in the program and amongst our students that has to do with policy, that goes beyond individual schools or even individual districts and has to do with public policy. And what does diversity mean, and what does equity mean writ large, not just in particular communities?
Thanks, Rob. So I want to ask maybe a bigger question, and then I have some smaller questions to get out there. But as the directors of the program, what are we noticing with the teachers that are interested in the High Tech High GSE? What do you find is the most common motivator for people to participate in the programs? And how do the GS students, this is a great question, how do our GSE students motivate you? So what's the common denominator? Why are they coming? And then how is their work motivating us as a graduate school? Great question. Thanks, Stephen.
Go ahead, Kelly.
The camera's on you. All right. I'd love to hear Rob's thoughts on this too. I mean, I think it's so different. I've noticed in the teacher leadership concentration, people that come here from outside of our schools went into teaching for a reason that does not feel entirely fulfilled in their current education environment, in their context. So they came in really wanting to connect with students, build relationships, to do work that mattered, and they're feeling constrained in some way by their current system, and they want to be around a supportive network of colleagues that are thinking about things differently and feeling empowered to take risks and try things that are new in their classrooms. I would say that's a typical situation that emerges, and they find through the program this reconnection and passion for what brought them into education. again, and they want that spark to come alive again. So that often happens. I think for people coming to the one-year model and really hoping to be embedded in our schools, either concentration, I think the beauty of the program and the uniqueness of the program is our embeddedness in the high-tech high schools. And some people believe, I think, wrongly, that we're trying to create more high-tech high teachers or more high-tech high schools. And that's really not how we see it. We see the high-tech high schools as context for learning and clinical sites where you can see some of the things that people are talking about at the policy level in regards to deeper learning, innovation, 21st century schools. You'll see more of that in practice and alive in our schools than, unfortunately, you see in a lot of schools across the country. So they become a very rich context for learning, for trying things out, for seeing things in practice that are often discussed in theory in other graduate programs, but it's hard to find models of where that's happening effectively. So I think people come here because they want to really be embedded in part of the schools and trying things out as they learn. Rob, do you want to add to that? Does that capture some of why people come here?
You've captured just about all of it, Kelly. I mean, I would say that one of the things that's so inspiring to me is that our students are really interested in transformation, and transformation of their own context of teaching and learning, and then they find that also that in the process they're engaging in a process of self-transformation. Paulo Freire says that the human vocation is to be more, and I think that what we see in our students are people who have that vocation to be more and to develop a context where their students can also be more than they are now. So there's this sense of striving that inspires me every time I interact with our students. For me, what keeps me engaged in all of this is that I learn something new every time I interact with our students.
Yeah. I'd love to put this question back on Shannon, actually, because she's met folks in our academy, and you've interacted with schools in our academy this year. We have folks from Canada and Chile, New York, Chicago, Kentucky, and you're interacting with everybody. And I would love to hear, what do you find that's the commonality between all of the students from these different areas of the world that are coming together? What do you find that's common for us?
I just think it's really a group of people who are comfortable challenging one another and pushing one another, and so it just feels like a really safe group of people to do that with. You come away from an experience with somebody from high-tech high GSE and you have 100 new ideas of what you might do. You've questioned yourself, you've questioned other people, you've questioned practices, and I think that's what I see from everybody.
Laura, I wanted to respond to the what motivates you, how your students motivate you, because I feel so lucky to be in this work and to be a learner every day and to be amongst the graduate students as we're wrestling with these issues. And I think what motivates me and kind of blows my mind is the different creative solutions and kind of problem solving and innovative approaches that they take to creating change in their schools. Go above and beyond things that we've done and we've tried at high-tech high. So there's no formula, there's no technical model or solution or steps to follow to create these schools. We really dig into belief systems, core values, things that we're questioning, and then people come up with very different ways of addressing those issues in school. So for example, one of our graduate students last year was looking at equity issues inherent with student body associations or traditional ASBs and how it can become kind of a popularity contest and leadership development of a few that are elected, but it's more of kind of a social game for kids, and the focus of those groups can become overly on school dances and kind of functions and not on real kind of issues of the school and school change efforts. And so she created a completely open and inclusive student body where there were no elections. Kids could join in at multiple times during the year and work on different things. They looked at school climate data and surveys with students to find out ways that other students were passionate about changing their school, and then saw the ASB as a vehicle for school change and student voice and supporting that change, and just completely flipped upside down the way ASB has been done, for many years in many schools, and that's inspiring to me and motivating to me to see the creative ways that people are putting to practice some of the questions that we are posing in the theory we're exploring through the graduate school.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. I'm going to just jump in and then move us on to another question because we are almost out of time. But I just want to say the passion that motivates me. I am so inspired when I see the people like Shannon who are in their classroom and every day they're making change happen in their school in a radical, fast pace. And so when I see that, I'm inspired and I'm awestruck about their ability to do this work where they are and how they're doing it with such passion, fidelity, honesty, humility, and courage. And so that's what motivates me when I see this, that I'm inspired. I guess that's really the simple answer. So I just have a few more questions left, and I want to make sure we're out of time. We don't run out of time. The first question is, there are some folks who are thinking during the GSE, if they're here for the year, is there an opportunity to be absent to implement the ideas and network back to our own environment? For example, if the one teacher asked, would he be able to kind of fly back and forth so that he can take what he's learning in the GSE during the year and go back and visit his school site at some point throughout the year? And I hope I captured your question, Harry. But that's a question that's coming up. And how might that work?
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes, and we work with you, and it's a very personalized experience. For example, the current graduate student that we have who's opening a summit school in Tacoma, Washington, is not here right now. She's doing an info session this week, and she's meeting with some of the founding faculty. She's been flying back and forth, I think about every other week. So it really depends on your needs. If you're starting a school, there are different demands than other situations. So some people come here as individuals and are applying for jobs while they're in the program, and so they don't have that same connection. Some are still connected to CMO and helping with change efforts. So the short answer is yes, and we can talk about what that looks like based on your circumstances.
I would say too that it depends. It's a matter of proportion. The question is, where are you most present? And if you're most present back at your site, then the Education Leadership Academy is probably the appropriate program, where the focus is really on what's going on in your site. And if you feel that your presence is more with a group of people in San Diego who are thinking a lot about teaching and learning and so on, and there's an occasional presence back home, then the master's program might be the right program. It's a matter of proportion.
Great answer, Rob. Last two questions we have before we end up tonight. Is there a possibility to do the 2-year program if you don't live in San Diego?
Well, our people in the 2-year program are typically either high-tech high employees or area educators. So once again, I would just echo what Kelly was saying. We would look at any of these issues on a case-by-case basis. But even with the 2-year program, we assume that someone who's with us for the 2-year program is employed in an educational setting somewhere. And it's difficult, at this moment, it's difficult for people to be far away and still be fully participatory in our programs. We're moving towards looking at some online options and so forth, but we're not there yet. Kelly, do you want to add to that?
No, I think that captures it. Thanks, Rob.
And our last question is really about experienced professionals. We have a wide range of people that are watching. Some have been in schools for a really long time, and some are kind of new to teaching. So how many years is experience needed? For example, I don't have many years of experience. Should I still apply? Can you talk about experience level a little bit?
Kelly, I'll jump on this for and then you can just add in. We're flexible there too. Usually we mean 3 years of teaching experience, but what does that mean? I mean, we've admitted someone who has no teaching experience, but several years experience as a librarian, for example. And we might be thinking about, what if someone has, 8 or 9 or 10 years experience as a production manager in industry? and 1 or 2 years experience in teaching. Well, we would really want to look at that, you know. So there's lots of answers to that.
Great, Kelly. You want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, you know, I just would encourage you to apply or to reach out because, you know, there's lots of atypical candidates. The 3 years is recommended, and I would say typically it's common to have 3 to 10 years in the teacher leadership concentration or school leadership concentration, but we also have someone in the program this year who was a really strong leader in the world of YMCA and not-for-profit and has been such a contribution to the program, and so we don't want to be hard and fast with our suggestions through admissions process or to discourage people from applying because we can find really phenomenal people that are a great fit in many ways but don't fit a standard profile. So I encourage you to apply.
So experience doesn't simply mean experience in schools. The default is 3 years of experience in schools. What we are less likely to admit someone who is just out of college with a BA, has never taught in a school or been in a school, has never worked with kids, has never been engaged in producing anything. We're less likely to bring that person in. We're more likely to say, well, we think you need a few years of experience in a school or somewhere before entering this program.
Yeah. And right now, our intern credentialing program for really brand new to education, brand new teachers is a program where you have to be employed in the high-tech high schools or partner school. We're in the middle of strategic planning right now, and at some point may have a 5th-year program where you can come get your credential here and your master's. That's for more of a beginning of the profession. But the way the MED is designed now, in teacher leadership and school leadership, it is for people with more experience in education that are really deepening their practice and not just entering the field.
So we went through all of our questions. Kelly, if you want to close this up by just reminding us of some of the deadlines, requirements that people might just want to remember again. And then I just want to thank everybody for listening and sharing their feedback and their questions tonight. We had about 15 people watching, and it was really great. And so if you didn't have an opportunity to post a question, feel free to post a question on the Google site that you are watching or on the YouTube channel, or just send us an email because we're happy to answer questions and have individual conversations as people continue to engage in this dialogue.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We hope we get to know you better and that you apply to the programs. We do interviews with the applicants that we select and really take a personalized approach to getting to know you to make sure it's a good fit. And the next priority deadline is February 17th, so please push to get your applications in. We do rolling applications over the spring, but it helps us and helps you to kind of push for these priority deadlines. You have more of a chance of getting a fellowship. It gives us more time for the interview process and to let you know by late March, early April, especially for those thinking about moving here internationally and dealing with visas, or even in the residency programs moving across the country. We want to support you in that process and really feeling settled when you move here. So we hope that you apply, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks.